Welcome to Radiance Unbroken podcast, the space where high-achieving women come to breathe, to be seen, and to remember who they are beneath the stress, the expectations, and the exhaustion. I'm your host, Dr. India, and this podcast is where we unravel the layers, the hormones, the stress, the identity shifts, the healing, the faith, and the science, so you can rise into a life that feels aligned, grounded, and whole. This is your sanctuary. This is your reset. This is Radiance Unbroken. So let me tell you a story. Okay, this is going to be a case study. A woman who looked like she had it all together. She was polished. She was dependable. She was the one everyone called when they needed something. She was even a wife, a mother, a professional, a woman with a full plate, then some. And we may all know about that. She smiled on the outside, but on the inside, her body was whispering, speaking, and screaming, help. Now, this may sound familiar to many today. Listen to some of the symptoms that she had. So she experienced joint pain, migraines, irritable bowel, fatigue. And this fatigue kept her feeling like she was stuck in, just stuck. Fatigue that felt like cement in her bones. She couldn't move. You ever had that exhaustion where you're just so weighted down by fatigue that you can't even move? You can't finish the things that you need to do before you go to bed. Hormones that were no longer harmonizing, but fighting for survival. And every doctor she saw had a different agenda, a different prescription, a different guess. Medication after medication. So she had stacks and stacks of these different medications that were being prescribed for her. Compounding, colliding, until her life felt smaller, heavier, and more miserable by the month. Has anybody ever felt like that? This woman was me. I lived the experience. So today I really want to talk to you about the cortisol bully, because cortisol is nothing to play with. Have you all ever experienced that one person, either at school or at your place of employment, and you were just like, I do not want to encounter this person because every time I get near them, they drain me? Well, that's just, think about cortisol being like that. So before we go deeper into my story, let's talk about the real antagonist in today's episode. And it's this cortisol. Cortisol is not the villain. Not at first anyway. Cortisol is supposed to be the team player. The hormone that wakes us up in the morning. And then it regulates inflammation. It balances our blood sugar. It supports memory and focus. It helps you respond to stress. But when life becomes a marathon with no finish line, then what? When you're carrying responsibilities that exceed your capacity, then what? And when you're living in survival mode for months or years, and it seems like you can't get out of this place, cortisol stops being a teammate and it becomes the bully. And that bully was running my life. I started to decline. Could my body keep up? No, it couldn't keep up. I was a wife with children. I was carrying the weight of a household, a marriage, a career, and expectations that felt absolutely impossible. Have you ever felt like that? When your load was so great, it just felt like impossible. I was trying to be everything to everyone. But my body was waving a white flag. I had so many things that showed up in my health. I had rheumatoid arthritis. My joints were inflamed. I had migraines that stole my entire days. My sisters would have to come over and get my children. I had gut issues that made eating unpredictable. When I went on vacations, I always had to carry a little baggie full of antacids and things for the gut so that if I ate something, I really had something to try to counteract the pain or the disrupt that was going to happen. The hormonal chaos. Sleep that never was restored. Well, sleep that really never restored me, in other words. Stress that rewired my entire nervous system. And the medications, Lord, the medications, they were piling up. I mean, I was getting something from my neurologist. I was getting something from my rheumatologist. I was getting something from my GI doctor. I mean, they were just piling up. Each one added a new side effect. And if it didn't add a side effect right away, believe me, I did my due diligence to research to see if it had any adverse side effects that were attached to these medications. Each one dimmed my light a little more. Until one morning, I couldn't move my limbs. I had taken some pain medication before I went to sleep because I had to be at the hospital at 7 a.m. in the morning. So that meant, okay, probably had to wake up around 5 or 5:30 in order to make it to work on time. And when I woke up that morning, I was basically almost halfway hanging out the bed because the medications didn't help the pain, but it knocked me out. So I couldn't move my limbs. My children had to help me dress at times. One time I can recall, my daughter and I, we were at the mall and we were trying on clothing, and all of a sudden I felt this heaviness come over my limbs, pain, intense pain, just acutely. And she had to help me get dressed so we can leave. And the pain was severe. My son had to help me go up the steps in my home before to make it to my bedroom. He had to carry me, literally carry me up the steps to my bedroom because of the pain that I would have in my joints and in my limbs. And it felt so heavy. I've missed work. I've missed life. And I have missed myself. I missed myself. Have any of you ever experienced life being so full and so heavy? So much that you're carrying. Let it be physically, mentally. That you missed yourself. This was my dead end moment. And you may ask, what was my turning point? Okay, let's talk about my turning point. The turning point was when I woke up. Okay, I realized something. Every provider had their own agenda. No one was looking at the whole woman. No one was asking the why. Why was my body shutting down? So I did what many women are forced to do. I became my own advocate. I became my own advocate. I'm telling you, I started researching deep into evidence and solutions, testimonials of other people who had, been through some of the similar illnesses as myself and how they recovered. I prayed. I fasted. I used common sense. I evaluated my life with brutal honesty, everybody. Brutal honesty. I had to really I had to really comb through everything with a fine tooth comb. Is that how you say it? And I made decisions that saved my life and my mind. It was to the point where I'm like, I have to save my life. And I am not about to go crazy. I had to save my mind. I removed stress, including relationships that were breaking me. I left a marriage that was mentally and emotionally manipulative. I changed my environments. I changed my nutrition. I changed my exposures. I changed my boundaries. Boundaries are so important because if we don't have boundaries, you extend yourself beyond your capacity. And that can what? Cause havoc on the body. That can what? Cause illnesses. I bought a new home 1 month before giving birth to my 4th child because my children deserved better. I worked full time. I parented full time. I carried the financial load alone. Ladies, I feel you. I hear you. And I see you. Life is not for the weak at heart. Not at all. But God was my source. And I sit in that and I'm so grateful. God was my source. He's still my source. And he never left me. He never left me. So what is the science behind my breakdown and my breakthrough? So we're going to talk about adrenals, the adrenal dysfunction, and cortisol. This episode is sponsored by Aryze, where we help women understand what stress is really doing to their bodies. If you've been running on empty, waking up tired, craving sugar or caffeine, or feeling like your body is in go mode, even when you're exhausted, your cortisol may be calling for help. At Aryze, we use personalized integrative testing and care to help women restore energy, balance stress hormones, and feel like themselves again. Schedule your discovery call today and begin your own reset. According to functional medicine research, chronic stress, it leads to a decline in the body, right? So there can be cortisol dysregulation. There could be adrenal fatigue-like syndrome. There can be sleep disruption. Stress can also lead to immune imbalances. Stress can lead to inflammation and hormone imbalances. My symptoms were textbook. Now, progesterone and cortisol, we kind of have a tug of war situation when those two hormones get imbalanced. So when your cortisol is high, your progesterone is usually low, okay? It usually drops. And it's just how our body tries to regulate, right? When progesterone drops, women experience a number of things. They experience anxiety, irritability, heavy or irregular cycles, insomnia. You can't sleep. You're trying to sleep. You're tossing and turning in the bed at night. One person told me that when she tosses and turns at night, when she's having this insomnia, she gets up, walks around, she grabs a snack, and then after that, she can go back to bed. Now, look at the snowball effect of how stress can cause havoc on our body and then on our weight, on our mindsets. And then this drop of progesterone can also have women experiencing PMS that feels like a personality change. All of that was me. But let's think back. Did anybody identify that in me when I was going through all of that? No, but they did continue to prescribe different medications for me. But none of them addressed the hormonal imbalances that were taking place in my body. So, okay, functional medicine, they also talk about like, how can we get those things tested, right? And when you want to test your cortisol levels, salivary cortisol testing, and that's by way of saliva, is one of the best ways to map daily rhythm of cortisol. It also allows you to see the adrenal patterns. So with cortisol, the levels are usually higher in the morning when we rise. And then throughout the day, those levels begin to balance out. And by the evening, they decline and they're the lowest. So that's ideal. Mine was upside down. So what does that tell you? That indicated that my cortisol was out of whack. My adrenal glands were really fighting. And when your cortisol levels protect us, yes, cortisol is good when it's supposed to be good. But when you burn yourself out, those cortisol levels begin to go low. And then you can eventually end up with adrenal fatigue. But there are treatments that we can prescribe. There are treatments that help with cortisol imbalances. And these are just some general concepts that I'll discuss. So some of the general strategies would be more like stress removal. So try to decrease some of the stressors in your life. If you like music, listen to some music. If you like going to a body of water, go relax by a body of water. If you have your favorite tea, get some tea. Or if you like fashion, if you like reading a book, just snuggle up and get a book. But try to remove yourself from stress. Anti-inflammatory nutrition. There are a lot of food and nutrition that we eat that may not work with your body well, and it causes inflammation. So you want to be able to identify those things so that you can step away and don't indulge, right? And then plant forward eating. Those are ways through functional medicine that we advise people of how they can feel better. Nervous system regulation, sleep restoration. Our body should be getting 7+ hours of sleep per night. And that's sound sleep, not broken sleep. Hormone evaluation, gut restoration. The gut brain has a connection. And reducing toxic exposures. Every day we are exposed to toxins at our place of employment, in our homes, in the environment. Sometimes we even cause those toxins just personally by putting on perfumes and lotions and hair products, or the things we clean our clothes with. Or we should really consider evaluating a lot of those things. And these were the pillars that really rebuilt me. What helped me to reset? I shifted to a more plant-based way of living. So when I would eat, it would be more, it wasn't 100% plant-based though. But the majority of it was plant-based. And it was a way of eating because my body needed anti-inflammatory support. And it worked for me. And that's not to say that for someone else that you eating meat would be bad. Everybody's body is different. So I'm telling you what worked for me. And I removed the stressors that were suffocating me, including the marriage. I went back to grad school. I raised 4 children. I worked full time. I healed my body with the guidance of God. I rebuilt my life. And eventually, I crossed the finish line. How did it feel? Let's see. How did it feel when I crossed that finish line? I was elated, okay? I was so excited. And I can recall when one day I had seen one of my friends in the hospital where I worked, and I told him, I said, mark this day. I said, I will be, and I told him a few of my goals by this date. And so when you write things down and you believe and you have faith and you have those affirmations and you declare and you decree over your life, you are making it plain and you are believing, and those things can come to pass. So once again, how did I feel? I felt peace. I felt joy. I felt gratitude. And a deep knowing that God had carried me the entire way. And a deep knowing that God had carried me the entire way. So when did the case study become the clinician? When did the case study become the clinician? Or when did the case study become me? Okay, the case study became me because my healing ignited my calling. My healing ignited my calling. I pursued advanced training in functional medicine, which is root cause medicine, hormone replacement therapy, and bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, metabolic health, gut restoration, medical weight loss management. We can go on and on. And now I help women unravel the stressors that have become physical burdens. Women who look fine on the outside, but are falling apart on the inside. Women who are carrying too much. Women who are exhausted. Women who are overwhelmed. Women who are trying to hold a family, a career, a marriage, a life together with shaking hands. I help them see the patterns. I help them understand the physiology. I help them reclaim their radiance. This is a message to the women listening today. If you're listening and you are feeling like you're drowning in responsibilities, if your body is whispering or screaming, if you feel unseen, unheard, or misunderstood, you have options. You have resources. You have support. And you are not alone. If you check the description, we'll have resources for you that can help you begin your healing journey. And if this episode spoke to you, like, subscribe, and share it with another woman who carries it all. Because we all know someone who looks strong, but is silently breaking. And today we break that silence. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Radiance Unbroken. If today's conversation stirred something in you, gave you clarity, or reminded you of your own strength, I invite you to stay connected. Subscribe, share, and revisit the episode that speaks to your spirit. Remember, your radiance is not lost. It is not broken. It is waiting. And I'll be right here, walking with you as you rise.